Hey, 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 everybody. Zeus here with Sounds and Grounds, welcoming you back to our special episode, the seventh episode of a seventh son of a seventh episode. I'm here, as always, with my friend and companion, Mr. Jack Costo from Seven Spires. And we have the one and only, the illustrious, worldwide traveling Kim, the ghost face Dylla of Kylla Custom Rock Wear. Hey,
Hey,
Kim, how you doing? Thank you so
what,
much for agreeing to do this.
what's up, Sounds and Grounds? Thanks for having me on. This should be fun. I got some good response from the internet about questions, and I demolished your coffee, so now I've got a beer here for the hang sesh,
Nice.
and
Yes,
let's make
yes.
some sounds.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with brews, be it beer or
Yeah,
beans. So
exactly.
it's approved. So how you been doing? You're on top of everything else, now intercontinental, living between uh, Sweden and the US. Now,
Yeah,
right?
so I run Kylla Custom Rock Wear, which makes like custom clothing for heavy metal bands or really anyone. We do like yacht rock bands too, and wrestlers. And primarily, I mean, we technically could make anything, but those are my primary customers. And I have a studio at my home in beautiful Charlottesville, Virginia. And then my boyfriend is Swedish. He's the guitarist of Amon Amarth, Johan Soderberg. And normally when people get together in a serious relationship, one person moves and they move in together, and people are like, when are you going to move in together? And like he likes America better and I like Europe better. So we
Right
decided,
on.
let's just keep the best of both worlds. And so we live half time in Stockholm and half time here. And um, I mean, it's nice. Like Sweden is beautiful in the summer, and Europe is certainly a hub for metal, which is great.
Right.
But it's really depressing in November. And a summer in Charlottesville is beautiful too. We go tubing every Sunday, and I have more space here. Like American homes are bigger, and I have a studio that has space. So, making clothes is not really like working remotely with a laptop. I have to travel
Right.
with like three industrial sewing machines and five suitcases of gear. Like, seriously, I check five bags when I go to Sweden. It's good that we
Yeah.
have status on SAS because you never know what kind of materials you're going to find in a different place. And we have materials that have been like road tested. I don't want to put someone in some fabric I've never tested and then split their pants on stage, and that's on me. Like how
Right.
it happened with
Uh,
Lenny Kravitz. Like,
yeah. The wardrobe malfunction from hell, you could call it.
yeah. I mean, I personally would not freeball it under leather pants under any circumstances. Just say not even like a backup on a material that definitely will split, but like, talk about rock nuts. Like leather does not breathe all that well.
Mm-mm.
Like,
Yeah, and as long as you have time to do laundry every single day after every single show,
yeah,
I guess
yeah,
it's
and it's not.
fine.
Yeah, you can't like wash leather like that. You have
Right.
to take a leather cleaner. But
Yeah, yeah.
I guess it's testament to a lot of people not really knowing what to do with high-end garments, which is why they have wardrobe people like me. I mean, I've had guys and girls put corsets in a washing machine and dryer,
Mm.
put leather jackets in a washing machine and dryer. Now I have tags that detect if it's been put in a washing machine or dryer, so I can be like, yeah, you have to pay for this repair because that's voids the warranty.
Yeah. And I mean, you even put instructions. I know I got gear from you over 10 years ago, and it just had little instructions. Like, we're like, look, it has instructions like, oh, wow, it has a special way to care for it. And the cleaner, like using the vodka, like that's my go-to now with everything, is using vodka spray to clean things. How did you know that would work for a cleaner? Was it just experimentation? Was it spillage from a rough night out, or how did that come about?
I actually got that tip from Taylor Swift's wardrobe people because, like, my friend Amos, he plays bass for Taylor Swift. He's from Charlottesville.
Oh, wow.
Charlottesville, Virginia, may people don't know it other than that, like, political mess that happened a few years ago where a bunch of Nazis
Yeah.
invaded our town. They were not from our town, but it's a great music town, and we have tons of world-class musicians from here, not Nazis.
Right,
And
right.
we got Thomas Jefferson and musicians and beautiful nature and the University of Virginia. And so anyway, Amos is from Charlottesville, and he's the bass player of Taylor Swift. And Mike Meadows is also like the guitarist. And anyway, Amos had commissioned a vest for the Taylor Swift Red tour for me, and I had to like go to the show, and I was looking at all the costume changes of these sequined outfits, and I'm like, oh my god, how do they clean those, you know, between every show? And he said that their wardrobe person sprays them down with vodka in between each show, like on the armpits and the parts that get sweaty, and it kills the odor causing bacteria. And I was like, that's actually great, because then you don't end up smelling like rancid Febreze, or like, you know, it's something that you can easily get on the road. It's always at the bar. You just need like, you know, one of those nice spray bottles you get at Walmart, and then just refill it. So,
Yeah,
that may be a game changer for me. Holy shit.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't work
yeah.
forever, but it will prolong the amount of time that you need between like hand washing.
Wow.
It's the 1001 uses for vodka on a tour bus, so just add that. So spilling vodka on your stage gear is not a bad thing also.
I mean, it depends on your stage. If you hopefully don't have to drive, you
right,
get pulled over, like, smell like alcohol in here. Oh, I was just cleaning my clothes.
Right. It's like, look, here's the instructions. Here's a spray bottle. Because cops totally buy that.
Also, like, a lot of people take their gear to dry cleaners, or like the wardrobe people do that. And if you do any sort of like hand painting like I do, it'll strip all that off. So I have to be like, do not dry clean.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, those are brutal chemical processes. So.
Yeah. So you've been doing this a long time. I know you started out just making your own gear. How long really have you been doing this professionally for people that might be interested?
So I started doing this professionally in 2012. So that's, you know, 11 years, 12 years now, depending on when that was. Again, what month is it? When year? Yeah, about 12 years. So
right
I used to do virtual archaeology stuff at the University of Virginia, and I'm sort of still tangentially involved in that field. And then I played in a band called This Means You, and we toured. And then I had friends through that in a lot bigger bands, specifically Joey Jordison, who was the same size as me, and I would make clothes to wear on stage, and he would steal my jacket, steal as in borrow indefinitely.
Right.
And he wore one of my jackets to like the Golden Gods or the Grammys or one of those award shows. I was like, there's that thing. I've been looking for it everywhere.
Right.
No, but he a lot of people asked him where he got the jacket, and then he would give them my phone number, like, oh, Kim makes them, like, here's their number. So I got some calls from like Rob Flynn from Machine Head and Cradle of Filth and a few other people, Corey from Trivium, and, you know, I don't know, a bunch of people sort of at the top end of touring metal bands at the time. And I was making those jackets on top of my full-time faculty job. And then like I had to trade up in bosses and such, and just sort of thought, like, how many jackets do I need to make per week to like pay my health insurance? And it was a normal human amount. And so I was like, okay, let's give this a go. I don't have any kids or anything, so never looked back. It's not the easiest thing to do. Like, it's basically an inhuman amount of work to run a company and to like produce garments. Like, it's really time consuming. But I think that's any creative field, like making music, recording music, drawing, doing
guitars, all of these things.
Yeah, it's like, ask you how many hours it takes to like design and make a new guitar. Like, it's impossible.
All of them. It takes all the hours.
There's so many all-nighters. Like, how many hours does it take you to make an album? You know, like, that's an unanswerable question. So I'm constantly fighting against like not being able to estimate how long something takes and it taking too long for me to have a life outside of it. But it is worthwhile when you see like the fruits of your labor in really cool places, like on stage in front of where, you know, being worn by bands that I've loved for years, or just like even not so grandiose. Just yesterday I got an email from like an independent wrestler telling me how good the gear that I made him feel and things. And I don't want to just work with celebrities. I'm a local musician. I've been a local musician for years, in addition to having been in GWAR and stuff. And I work with big bands, but I don't really distinguish too much from the two. Like, I want to make you feel like a rock star in your stage clothes, regardless of what level of success you've achieved in a commercial sense. So,
right. And you touched on the wrestling. That was my next segue for you. Pretty much all the heavy hitters, it parallels the bands that you also do stage gear for. How did the transition work going to wrestling? Like, was there a pivotal person like Joey on the wrestling end? And one of the questions, you know, we did have a lot of really funny, good submissions. Do you prefer wrestlers over musicians? Specifically, who's the bigger crybaby? Who's the biggest PITA, pain in the ass, to deal with? Anyone that follows your social media, you know, Instagram, Facebook, etc., you're quite open with your day-to-day goings on. I know we had talked about this a couple years ago, how your only communication for a while was, you know, social media and talking to people and interacting that way. And then of course COVID like sort of like doubled down on that whole situation. But how was that transition, you know, to the wrestling world? And is it similar to dealing with musicians? Is it a little bit different environment, obviously? What's your take on that?
all right, so I will break down that multitudinous question.
It's all this
jumble of questions into like, okay, so to get started, the pivotal wrestler that got me into working with wrestlers was Bray Wyatt, who a lot of people know in the WWE world. And it's a funny story how I got working with him, because I was on tour with GWAR and we would get press interviews right around 2 p.m. each day. And the person would call your phone from a number that you don't know and you'd have to answer it. Horrible. I hate that.
Who does that?
Yeah, but I had to answer in character as Vulvatron. So I answered this call, and like most musicians will just email you or send you a DM or whatever, you know.
Right.
We're all sort of like, everyone keeps weird hours or whatever. Wrestling, it's like very old school, and they're very much cold. You want something from someone, you cold call them, you know. And I kind of like that. It gets things done, but for me personally, it's horrifying because I'm kind of phone phobic. So anyway, I get this call and I answer in character, and I'm like, yeah, what do you want, you pathetic human slave? You know, like, Kim, is this the person who makes like, you know, vests and stuff? I got your number from like, I think it was Chris Jericho gave him my number. Someone had been making clothes for Fozzy. And he's like, I'm Wyndham. I play like Bray Wyatt on WWE. I wanted a vest. And I'm like, oh, let me get my human slave. She's so sick. You know, like, so I started making like sort of post-apocalyptic clothing for Bray Wyatt in WWE. And that really took off. We started seeing like all these other that was in like 2014, 2015. I think I started a trend for the first time in my life. And I didn't really know how to react to it at first, because he started wearing these vests, and then all these indie wrestlers and other wrestlers started wearing like post-apocalyptic looking gear, and everyone's like, Kim, did you make this? And I'm like, no, someone's ripping me off, you know, like. But they say imitation is like the highest form of flattery, and it really took me a while to adjust my attitude to that. And I'm like, everyone takes inspiration from things, as long as they're not making like a direct lift or saying that they made the thing I made. You know, like, I should take this as a compliment. So that was kind of cool. Like, we started a trend of post-apocalyptic gear in wrestling. And then from him, he introduced me to all the other wrestlers in his circle, like Eric Rowan and Braun Strowman. And then I did some more stuff for Chris Jericho, who I still work with. on a really regular basis in AEW, and I'm doing some stuff for Danhausen, who everyone in the metal world loves. And like that AEW is super fun too. I got to meet Tony Khan at Jericho's birthday party, and they had a Judas Priest cover band, and you know,
Nice.
it's all metal wrestling, it's all entwined. So that answered question one.
Right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
Question two sort of like was sort of like, who's a bigger pain in the ass, right, in terms of metal and wrestling? Or I will say the things that metalheads versus wrestlers, or bands versus wrestlers, do that are the worst. I'm not going to call out who's the pain in the
Right.
ass.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I did have one WWE wrestler I worked with for WrestleMania pay me an $800 pain in the ass fee in advance because he knows he's a pain in the ass. And I was like, I never had someone give me like an $800 tip because they're gonna be a diva, but at least he recognizes and acknowledges that. I would say he burned through about 600 of them.
Wow.
but you know,
Yeah.
then okay, the things that bands do that are the worst is constantly ask makers for free shit. I don't know who started this culture of everyone getting endorsements and stuff, and I'm sure you get it a lot as a guitar company, but bands will try to pose like they're famous in order for you to endorse them, aka work for free. And it's like, I'm a small business that makes everything by hand. Like, yeah, you're wearing it on stage in front of people, but it's not a walking billboard, you know? And it doesn't say like buy clothes at KyllaCustomRockWear.com. It's not affliction, you know, with that thing on there. If you make like branded t-shirts that are very low cost to make, that have your name on it, I can see why you would gift someone that to her on stage. But if you make a $400 custom leather jacket that doesn't have your name on it, I'm not giving it to the band that's like opening for the band that paid me for gear. You know, I don't give discounts based on how famous you are. That's
right.
bullshit. It's insulting. I can't pay my bills and exposure. Fuck off. Like,
yeah. Yeah, until Capital One lets you be like, well, I tell all my friends I have a Capital One credit card. Is that good? Are we good for the month for my bill?
Right. And this also, like, maybe a controversial opinion, but during COVID, everyone was asking bands to do charity shows for things. And I'm like, we're the ones that we should be receiving the charity right now.
Right,
you know,
right.
Why are you not asking like the people that work remotely in IT to make free websites for charity or something like that? You know, I don't understand why it falls on the lowest earners, aka artisans and makers, to like float the scene, you know, kind of thing. I think it's because everyone that is involved in music and things like that has a very strong sense of like lifting up their community and supporting their community. We are the first people to organize benefit shows and things like that, and everyone knows that, and it's great, and it's the reason I love this community. It's super supportive and inclusive and awesome, but I resent the fact that people constantly ask for free shit and ask for us, like, there's an understanding that we would do a benefit show. Like, why don't you ask like Bank of America to sponsor a benefit concert for like your fucking cancer cause or whatever, you know? Like,
right. Yeah,
so.
the normies just don't get the artistic side of you know, I had shared something a few days ago, and it's basically like an iceberg, and it's like the little tiny tip sticking out of the water, like that's what people see as your art, and then the rest of the ocean underneath is like, this is what goes into this little thing you see. But I, like you said, with the community of, you know, musicians and also the wrestling community, it's very tight knit. We all know what it takes to do the thing that we really love to do. That's our job. That's not supposed to be, because we do it when the payoff isn't nearly like, if you factored in what you make an hour versus how many hours you work, it's like I make $1 every 3 hours.
For sure. Yeah. I make like you know, Bangladesh sweatshop wages, I'm sure.
But you find ways to make it entertaining. One of the things I sent you a message is you have what's called the inbox fail. It's the most amazing thing. Can you talk about that, or is that only for?
So it's just on my personal page because like I think it would be bad for business.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm going to publish a toilet reader of these because they've earned it. And anyone who wins Inbox Fail of the Day has earned it. And it's basically a way to make it survivable for me. My inbox, I get like hundreds of messages of people asking for free things, pretending to be famous, or usually like wrestlers, the worst thing they do is not understanding how to order. Like it's very simple, like go to the website, click on shop, place an order, like and they'll
3 steps. It's 3 steps.
Send me like a million pictures of their gimmick, and I'm like, you haven't placed an order yet. I'm not interested in this yet. Like if I would like to work with you, and then this information is relevant. But if I engaged every like potential order before they placed an order, I wouldn't have any time to actually sew. So that's sort of like if someone the other day said I want some trunks like Dolph Ziggler or whatever. Okay, order the trunks on the website here. I'll send you the forms, but we can definitely do that. Yeah, but you don't have those on the website. I'm like, I'm not gonna like make a copy of it's a template, man. Like I can make custom means made to order however you like, just and then how long does it take? How much does it cost? Well, if you click the link, it says all those things. It's just a web store, and then he's like sends a 30 picture thing in DM or whatever. And I'm like, look, like I don't do business this way. Just place the order and I'll send you forms that you can like submit this in an organized way, because then it's awful. Like if I have 100 orders on the books and everything is like in DMs from someone who changes their screen name all the time, Facebook messages, texts, emails in 6 different threads, like it takes me hours to get all that, and I probably forget something. So I tend to be pretty rigid about like the ways people can communicate with me about things, but it will never cease to amaze me how hard it is for wrestlers in particular to click shop and like add to like go click the link. Reading is the problem in our community, and maybe the product of being dropped on your head too many times.
But to be honest, I'm going to bring this up. It was one of the first add-ons. People can't figure out your name is Kim. It's Kylie's the new joke. So you're going to give in eventually and just say, okay, my name's Kylie.
No, like my the name of the business is Kylla Custom Rock Wear, because my name is Kim Dylla. And in college, my roommates and I had this like name game. My roommates were like Ben Justice and Aditi Das Gupta, and so it was Adidas, Kylla, and Bustus. I don't know, but our producer at the time for my band thought that Kylla was like the coolest name ever. Sure. So he just started calling me that, and then a lot of people in the music industry started calling me that, and they thought it was cool. So when I started the music industry business, I was like, I'll just call it Kylla because it's a cool word. But then like Kyla wasn't a popular name then, and it was before like the Kardashians had like Kylie or all that. It wasn't really a name. So it didn't occur to me that people would confuse it with the millennial name Kyla, or maybe it's a Gen Z name. I don't know. It's younger than me. I'm in my 40s. Like that wasn't a name. So everyone just thinks that my name is Kyla with 2 L's or Kylie. And like I don't like that name. I mean, it's fine if it is your name, but it's sort of like if your name is Bob and everyone calls you Chris, like that's not actually my name. You don't identify with it. So I don't want Kyla to be my name. I don't dig it. And in my mind, it makes me think of like the Kardashians and superficial things. And so like, I don't want it to be my name. So I always just correct people. But like, I probably put up a video once a week. Like, my name isn't Kyla. I know you want it to be, but it really isn't. Like, even today, I had 3 emails in my inbox that said, "Hey, Kyla," or "Hello, Kyla," and then I always reply to the email. So I'll either outwardly correct them, like common misconception, like the company is Kylla Custom Rock Wear and I'm Kim. It's not my personal name. Haha. Like, or I'll just sign the email Kim. And then you wouldn't believe how many people just still respond. Kylla, you know, or than Kylie or Kelly or something. I
Right.
don't get how that is so hard either. It's
Yeah. I'm guilty because I started calling you Kylie as a joke because
oh yeah, well that's
we're
funny.
friends. But I think people that don't know you, like the IRL Xers, they just log on to that and it's like, oh, well, she liked this guy's post. He called her Kylie, so I guess it's okay for me to message her. But seriously, every other video you have to post is like, my name's Kim. You even said that in the promo for this podcast. You're like, it's Kim. Kylla Custom Rock Wear is my company, but my name, like, it's like, come on.
Well, I have a lot
like,
invested in like the artist name KIMZILLA. Like if someone wants to know who I am as a singer, I've been out there for like 20 years now as a metal singer under the name KIMZILLA. So I want people to know that and not just lump me in with this company. But like I do see how someone can just read a screen name and it becomes your name though. Like, you know, like are you friends with like Ginger and Mike down in Virginia Beach? Her screen name is like Ember or something. And I'm like,
yeah. Ember
and in
Light.
my mind, I'm always like, oh, Ginger Ember. You know, it's not the same name, but you kind of like, you read their posts every day under that name. And I can see how you read my Kylla Custom Rock Wear post. But if you've ever met me in person or like know anything about me as a singer.
Yeah, when I had first met you, we played at Star Hill. We opened for This Means You, like way back. That's when I met you.
And my studio's in Star Hill right now. That's where
is it? That's where you are?
Yeah.
Wow. That
it's
is so awesome.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, one day we'll have to make the trek up there and we can like get out of our cave here. Hopefully this year we'll start venturing out more. But I always like, I put you in my phone way back in the day was KIMZILLA. I just thought Godzilla, and it was just like you had this destructive presence when you were on stage as a vocalist, and I was like, that's just what I had always called you.
That's cool.
Myself, you know.
Yeah, that ended up being my Kung Fu Day stage name too, KIMZILLA, because we were thinking about, you know, it's so inspired by like Kung Fu films and things like that. So why not?
Yeah.
Godzilla.
Awesome, like memory lane trip, you know, thinking about all those bands and stuff. So you do have active bands. You have a new band. Do you just pronounce it Ekktoplasm, or do you have a weird thing? And CRUCHAN also you do vocals with.
So I'm in like 4 bands right now.
Only 4?
Five bands. So,
okay.
Like we'll start with Ekktoplasm, which is the newest. So that's my sort of like local live band out of the ashes of my previous local live band called Fulton Ave, and 2 of our members passed away. And then I was like, and it, I won't get into all that, but like it was sad. And then we were sort of like, well, we still want to play music and we should make something out of the ghost of Fulton Ave. And then I was like, why don't we make a ghost theme? You know, like the previous band was like serial killer themed death metal. So our drummer, Jordan Marcini from Bella Morte, another great Charlottesville band, who has passed away now. He lived on a street called Fulton Ave in Poughkeepsie, New York, next to a serial killer named Wendell Francois. And he's one of the very few Black serial killers. So I'm like, hey, this is inclusive. And then I'm like a female singing about being a serial killer. So like you can be a serial killer even no matter what you are. You know, like
you just have to be crazy. That's it.
And he murdered 8 hookers in his family home. And this is the fucking kicker. Not that just he lived next door to a serial killer who also happened to be Black, but the serial killer he lived next to had a regular norm family, like parents and a sister who also lived in the fucking house and went to work, normal like nurse jobs and stuff, like with the rotting corpses of the 8 dead hookers. Like how disgusting is that house that you don't smell 8 dead hookers in your house? Like I think they were
he sprayed vodka on the bodies. That's what it did.
Yeah, there. It's full circle now. So anyway,
there you go. Anyone that wants to be a serial killer, just spray vodka.
I like when I sing death metal, I like to have themes to write the lyrics about. So those songs were all about like the crimes of Kendall Francois, and then different serial killer crimes, mainly the sexual status targeting hookers, because there's a whole genre of that starting with Jack the Ripper, and I'm sure it started way before him, but in our modern
documented murders of hookers.
So then this band is about Virginia hauntings, because we live in Virginia and there's so many different legends and lore of haunted buildings and stories around here. So each song is about a different Virginia haunting. Eventually I'll sort of like, if I travel somewhere else, like we went to New Orleans and I wrote a song about the French Quarter ghosts from the yellow fever epidemic there and stuff, and then my band Kung Fu Dykes I had before Guar, we played Guar a few times. It was like blacklight stage antics, and I really had enjoyed that. So I was like, what if we, thinking a little bit like 80s Ghostbuster theme, what if we did like green Slimer Ekktoplasm and then had it be UV responsive? So it's fun, everyone enjoys the theme, and it's brand new. We're putting it together, and Justin, who was the rhythm guitarist in Fulton Ave, is the lead guitarist and songwriter, and he's super talented. The man is just a riff factory, and his songs are really good, and I'm excited to show them to the world. And also just like sitting in a van with my friends and drinking beer and playing bar shows where you never know if you're going to get like double booked with a Bollywood band or like, have like ridiculous occurrences. It is kind of my favorite thing about just playing music, is like the organic independent scene, and I had the best memories and the best time when I got started in this whole music business like that, and it's been a really fun return to my roots to have like a local band again and just sit in the van and have fun with your friends jamming on some metal.
It probably recharges your desire, the passion to do what you do. Going back to that, Simon and I always talk about like wanting to play again, because you do miss it once it's in your blood. It's like riding a bicycle. It's always there, and if you can hop on it and enjoy it. But our issue with most people, it's like if we're gonna do it, like we have to find the right people. Like you said, you're gonna be in a van, probably playing some dive stuff just to get back out there. And if the personality is first and foremost, like we had talked about this earlier, with Jack, it's like you can't be that guy that everybody hates to be around. And it's just like, we're all.
I mean, I think what you're trying to say is you need to find the right drummer.
Exactly. Right. But which is how I taught myself to play drums. Was we had all the equipment. All the drummer had to do was show up. They just had to show up. I bought drumsticks, drum heads, cymbals, stands, drums, cases. We had the van, we had the trailer. All the guy had to do was show up, and not even do that. So I'm like, well,
somebody has to. Well, that's a drummer joke in the making. But yeah, being in a band is like being in a relationship. And although I definitely like appreciated the opportunity that Guar offered me, not only to like be in a band where like somebody heard of it before, which immediately garners you a level of respect, whether they saw a show or not. It's like weird how that, as long as someone's heard of something you've been involved with, whether they like it or saw a show or something, it just gives you like this different level of respect. But mainly it was real cool to pay tribute to my friend Dave Rocky, who was a super big supporter of my independent projects. This Means You, who even he tried to get his roommate to be our bass player back in the day, and like Kung Fu Dykes had a barbecue and his like benefit and stuff, and it was when Corey passed, we did the benefit for him, but it was cool to pay tribute to him in that way. I think he would have been fucking proud of me. And also I really enjoyed the feeling of having tits for the first time in my life.
Tits that sprayed blood. Don't forget.
They were a little leaky, but I'd often considered, tearing my chest apart, to conform to like plastic standards of the day. But I decided that was a little bit superficial. No slight against anyone who has done that.
Right, sure.
But like, now I got to experience what that would be like. And I did not like the feeling of not being able to put my arms down. That was a little bit weird.
Now you know how like fat people like feel like I can only put my arms here. Like I got
Yeah, awkward.
awkward.
But yeah, that was fun. But
Yeah.
anyway, there is way too many people in that band that need to sort out some personal issues. And I feel like it was like joining a marriage where they've been married too long and like hate each other kind of thing. But a lot of that was just the weird transition in Brocky's absence, which left like an awkward power vacuum. And it honestly wasn't very fun. Like there was a lot of infighting and nastiness there, and being on the road in a family with people like that aren't happy with each other is not great, even if you have the blessing. And I'm sure anyone that's been in a independent band can say it's a blessing if you just show up to a venue and the crowd is there. Like you didn't have to fight to promote to get those people there. You didn't have to fucking load the drum kit up like 3 flights of stairs. Like that's amazing. You just like silver spoon. You just roll out of your tour bus. No, we did have 14-hour shifts. I had to like load wardrobe cases and make blood and fucking deal with man thongs and like, you know, do lunch catering orders and rig lights and, you know, things like that. But the basics were there and it was a huge privilege. But like if you're not with the right people, and I'm not saying they're not great people, they are, but like the personality mix was all over the place. And there's definitely some people in that band, in fact most of them, that are like good friends of mine today and have a bunch of respect. And almost everyone that kind of did me wrong, like apologized, and I don't say anything bad in person, but like it's a good example of like there just being personality problems in an artistic project together. And like you need to make sure that you get along well, because you're doing as many sitting in a tin can for like, you know, months at a time together. And if you can't get along in that situation, then you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah.
And that's the, and most people can't, you know, it's like try to be in a relationship with literally anyone. Think about all the awful relationships you've been in your life. I know I've had a lot of awful relationships, and like, then try to find 9 people that you're happy with living with for like 2 months. Like, good luck, you know?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
whatever.
the times, like it was the worst time for you probably to come into that situation. You know, like you said right off the bat, Dave Brocky, you know, Odorous, your youngest character, he was so much larger than life, and that's what most people knew Guar as was Dave
Yeah.
Brocky. I mean, I still see ads to this day, and they're still using Odorous like as a advertisement for the band. You know, so everyone's emotions are wrapped up in that, and
Yeah.
you know, big respect for them. They're still doing it. They regrouped and are out there and still playing and still writing good music. But that's tough to keep going when the guy is gone. And it was so
Yeah.
sudden, you know, it was
It's an
just like
impossible act to
next day.
follow, which is why they were like, oh, let's get a girl because it's not directly comparable. And then I think that's a great idea. But it's huge shoes to fill. And also, like, I'm, you know, I just had to like make it up a lot of times. They're sort of like, you know, I didn't get a lot of guidance with the character. They're just like, make it up. And I'm like, okay, tell me if I'm doing something you don't like. And I was obviously doing something they didn't like and they didn't
Yeah.
tell me.
And you, because you still
Like,
have
whatever.
followers, you know, to this day, people know you as that. And you did, I think, one tour as
It
Vulvatron.
was only one tour, which is
Yeah.
cool. But, you know, I made a big impression, which was
Yeah.
fun and
Yeah.
cool. And I'm honored that people still put me in their art. And like, I get a lot of fan mail where people are like, oh, it's cool to see that, you know, because all the other sort of Guar women have been like dancers rather than like a lead singer. And
Right.
people built me as a lead singer, which is a huge problem for Bishop. We were co-vocalists. I don't really see like the difference. We have 2 lead singers or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
they Bishop is hugely talented and very funny and part of the Guar narrative from the very beginning. I remember doing like a Sirius XM live thing and I was super nervous. And I had an interview with Alice Cooper and he gave me all these great input for like how to make jokes and stuff. And I really respect his intellect, his humor, and his talent. but at the same time, he did kind of like write me out of the narrative in a lot of interviews that I saw. Like it was both of us. When Rocky passed away, we were co-vocalists. Yeah, and yeah,
I mean, was he doing that as character or doing that as Mike Bishop?
No, he's doing it as Mike, and I don't appreciate that. But that's the only thing I'll say that I don't appreciate. Well, other than the fact that like Brent took over my social media and started posting a bunch of fucked up shit. But fuck that too. He apologized, so that's fine. Mike, you still have to apologize. Otherwise, everything else is cool.
Yeah, the fun and the experience more than outweighs kind of the ending. That's all. All good things come to an end. Unfortunately, it was rather short for the Vulvatron character. But I
gotta let new projects.
Right, sure.
So that I have a very good personality match for. So all the best to Guar. I think it's realistic to talk about when things go wrong and not with some hatred in your voice. So like that's what I'm trying to do now, Sure.
Yeah, no, I mean it's funny. I don't get a sense of like, oh, I'm like jaded by this. It's just like, look, this is what happened. It's okay now. I can talk about it. And that's part of being a professional.
Yeah, you got
a professional way is dealing with it and accepting it and moving on.
Oh yeah, there's one more thing I gotta say, which is I got painted as an alcoholic, which is great because I'm not an alcoholic. And people and you can defend that position, which is fucked up because it's like, if you stand there with a beer in your hand, they're gonna be like, you can't say I'm not drunk, right? But like I think there's I would like to defend beer drinkers because I love beer and I drink beer as an art form and wine and cocktails, and like there are two types of drinkers. And there's a lot of people who have alcohol problems or like addiction in their life. And if they have one drink, it's about getting drunk and they can't stop. And then there's like this European style of drinking, which I kind of come from, where it's not really about getting drunk. You just go to the beer garden in the evening and you have like 2 beers, or you go to like, the French restaurant or the Italian thing, you have like wine with your lunch or your dinner. Like I'm not in it to get wasted, and I never was. And going to shows for me and having beers is very much like going to the beer garden and having a bratwurst and a beer, or you go to a French restaurant and you have wine with your pasta. Yeah, you can do it sober, like, but why would I unless it negatively impacts my life?
Right.
It never has, honestly. Like,
and I can verify everything you're saying. Now, I can't even tell people how many times we've hung out in the past. You drink a lot, but you are always in control. Like, so people probably that didn't know you, that if you knew the levels that you can consume and are completely coherent. Now we have fun, like Ray was your penguin, which we haven't seen much of.
I have a drunk penguin.
Yeah. Ray was a drunk little stuff.
He has an alcohol problem. Like,
I
constantly have to spend money sending my penguin to rehab.
Yeah. And we had paired him with Zool from the Ghostbusters when we would go to NAMM shows and stuff. And like we're making these little scenarios and things. So we would definitely have a lot of fun, and there was alcohol, but at no point, like you said, there's 2 types of drinkers. And if we had felt hanging out with you, it was like, this is a problem kind of thing, and you distance yourself. But as much as we all drank together collectively, I would say you were always the most like, this isn't affecting me at all, and everyone else is trashed. So maybe just some jealousy there with people just can't handle what you can handle because it's in your blood, being from Scandinavian ancestry. That's
you have to hold. I work with a lot of Scandinavian bands and they drink a lot, and like I remember talking to Dimmu Borgir one time about some guy from LA who came over to do a fitting, and they went out drinking with him the night before, and he was like shaking and non-functional the next day and couldn't do their thing. And when I went to dress Enslaved in Bergen and then like delivered the wardrobe in Philadelphia, I made a whole wardrobe for their Frost album for the Decibel Beer and Metal Festival, which is awesome because it's 2 of my favorite things, craft gear and black metal. And you know, we'd been like, I was holding it down with like Enslaved the night before, and this manager who's like sober came to like check on me at 8 a.m. for the fitting, and I'm like doing everything. I think he expected me to be like fucked up and not doing my job.
Right.
But
Right.
the worst thing that ever happens drinking is I spend too much money at the bar, or I have kind of a hangover the next day, or you know, like I have a little bit of a stomach. But like I, until something, you know, if I was unable to control my behavior or like did things that I regretted when I was drinking, then I would stop.
Right.
You know, it doesn't really negatively affect my life other than my credit card, I guess. And
Right. But also your business, because yeah.
I was saying it's important to be able to hold my own, because a big part of working with Scandinavian bands, especially in the winter there, they all drink, and like I need to be able to function like working with those people. So like, you know, you gotta practice and condition like anything else.
Right. Right. And you do, like, you post all this, you'll go through a period where it's like, yep, I'm back from Sweden, so I'm having to hit the gym, I'm having to eat healthy. And so like people can see the whole process of how you do what you do. And if, like you said, if it was a problem, like you wouldn't, you wouldn't post all this stuff, but you would have to stop because you can't function and you can't be successful, and no one would hire you to do your job if you were not coherent and functioning and professional.
I resent that, because there's such a lot of people in the Guar sphere are addicts or ex-drinkers and sober, and that's fine. If you had a problem with alcohol and you're sober now, like I'm super proud of you, and I'm super supportive of your efforts, because I know that must be really hard. I am not an addict, and please don't let me carry your cross for you. Like I'm with the Europeans with that, you know, like
right.
There's a lot of Europeans that don't drink too, and like that's fine. They tend to be like, oh, when I got drunk I slept with random people, or like, you know, and or I drove my car drunk or whatever. I don't do those things.
Right. Right.
You know, but anyway,
speaking of cars, yeah, you have quite a passion for muscle cars, and I didn't want to bring this up because it's like the coolest things you could be involved in, and like you're part of the whole scene. You have like a 70s Dodge a Duster. That's what you have? Is it a Dodge Duster?
So it's like a Duster. It's a F-body Mopar. It's called an Aspen, and a lot of the Aspens are like not cool. They're like granny wagons, but it's the same thing as like a Road Runner. I woke up with the car after a good night of drinking for $1,000, which is a great investment, because the car is worth like 17 grand, and I've had her for like, I don't know, 15 years now. She's a 1976 bright yellow F-body Mopar, and 318 original. I upgraded things, kind of turned her into like a Super B. But
it's very cool.
She got taken out by a deer in October, which I'm rebuilding her into like a death-proof kind of Mopar, because the only hood I could find was blue and she's yellow. So I don't really have the money to like get her paint matched right now, but I'm gonna like do the flat black hood. And I got for the clothing business. It's gonna be super cool. But she's like 90% back together. We couldn't really work on her over the winter because my mechanic has just sort of like an outdoor garage kind of thing. It's important to have redneck friends if you're into muscle cars, because you need to have redneck friends with like
got to
garages, or you need to have like a 6-figure income, one of those two things.
Right.
I don't have a 6-figure income, but I do have redneck friends.
Yeah. So you just you get the work done when you can. That's just part
my friend
of it.
Kenny helps me, like, you know, with the car, and by help like does most of it. I try to learn how to do a lot of things on the car, and that's why I got it. I was like, I should have a hobby other than metal.
Right. And well, it's still metal.
Muscle cars. I'm gonna learn to work on cars. I tried to rebuild my carburetor myself. That was the worst possible thing I could have started with. Everything is spring loaded. Like everyone agrees that rebuilding a carburetor is like the 7th level of hell, and like I ended up just buying a new one after I rebuilt the carburetor, but I did make a lot of good friends in the process. Because my mechanic wouldn't do it, and he was like, you needed to like make some friends that know about Mopar carburetors. And then I took it to get like the louvers paint matched. I got on all these like F-body Mopar forums online, and I was so impressed with like how everyone is super helpful. Also, I expected, because I'd only ever met like greaser car club dudes, I kind of expected them to be sort of misogynistic or like sexist, which I'm sorry to greaser car club dudes, I judged you, but like that was my experience. And actual car people, not that they're not actual car people, they are, but like the vast subset of like Mopar nerds are really just interested in talking about cars, and we're super stoked to like find that a woman wanted to like hang out and drink beer and rebuild a fucking carburetor for the weekend, you know. And that's
right.
like, okay, you like to work on cars, let's work on cars. And I'm not good at it at all. But
well, a lot of people aren't, but you figure stuff out, and that's the cool thing with old iron, with automobiles and machines. It's really hard to mess something up where you can't undo it unless you have power tools involved.
Well, I like to strip screws. That's my worst feature. Like, it's like, oh fuck.
Yeah, beers and stripping screws. That's a Saturday night in Charlottesville or anywhere in Virginia.
It is, yeah. I wish they like would invent screws that, you know, had some sort of like titanium in the center that you couldn't so easily do that.
Yeah, well, they're not going to do that because then you would never replace it. So it's always like a steel screw going into aluminum, and it strips the threads, or it's the other way around, and the screw snaps off or strips out, and then you have to tap it and extract
and it's like underneath the car where you had to like get all, you know, sewing is like the same way. When you get to like the armpit that's like way up in the motherfucker, and you had to like get all the way up in there, that's when you run out of bobbin, which is right below, you know.
But it's cool that you post all this stuff, like you work on your own sewing machines, because you have some vintage like things that are probably worth more than most of the clothes you make. But
they're not valuable, but they are old. Yeah, like a lot of people have a misconception that like their grandma's old singer is like worth money. It is not. It is a paperweight. Everyone had those. It's like Michael Jackson Thriller album, or like those Disney VHS, you know, they were everywhere. But excluding the lack of monetary value, other than like $150, yes, you know, they are amazing machines. And I love any machine made before like 1975 was fully mechanical and made with metal parts, especially the ones before like World War II. They were so diesel. They just would take the machines from like 1918 and like rig them up to motors and use them during World War II. Those things are tanks, and I still use them. And then for zigzag and stretch machines, I use like 70s machines. People have all these computerized machines, and then just things break all the time, and you can fix the sewing machines with a screwdriver and a can of oil, and it's awesome. Except if like the gears get stripped or if the timing gets off, that's kind of a bitch. But I never had a sewing machine screw get stripped. I don't have it, I guess, because I'm not using power tools on them.
Yeah, and it's pretty much steel on steel, which is what you want, because the threads and the receptor and the device going into it, they're the same like tensile strength. That's how they could like hand rivet airplanes together in World War II, and they're still together. You know, you go to like an aviation museum, which we have here lots of, and I think one is haunted. So that's something to keep in mind for your song.
Oh yeah, I need to write a song about that. That'd be like the aces high of Ekktoplasm.
Right, yeah.
Oh yeah, I never moved past like the other projects too. I got to circle back to that because I got too distracted with my like therapy session.
You know what? It's all interconnectedness, so it's totally fine. It's just the way we roll. It's perfect. It's how it is.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I'll
so
come
yeah,
back to that. Yeah. So then Ekktoplasm was just the first project.
right.
I was
Oh,
talking
cool.
about how great it is to come back to your roots and just play a show for fun, be in the van with your friends. And like with sewing, you know, if you Nita Strauss, who's a friend of mine, she said this really cool, you know, I think it's just a meme she shared, but it was like, you know, there's the famous quote, like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. That's bullshit. Like, do what you love and you'll work like all the time with no time off, you know, and completely have no boundaries between work and life. And I think I just did this project. I every now and then I stop doing orders and I make something that I want to make, like sewing. And I just did this piece for like Rex from Pantera, who I met in the Hellfest gig. We were actually on stage with Pantera singing Walk, because Phil and his wife Kate are like good friends of ours, and it was super fun. But he had this concept that I really liked, which was getting some sort of like old school Southwest elements into like stage gear, like antique buffalo nickels and things. So I just wanted to make it, and like we hadn't even really properly communicated, but I was like, I'm just gonna like make something for him and like take it to the gig, you know, and see if he likes it. But like
Yeah.
and it was fun to just sort of do something creative that I want to do, or occasionally I make something for myself the same way. And Ekktoplasm is that project. But I have other projects that are fun, and like CRUCHAN is the biggest band I'm singing in right now from Ireland. They basically invented folk metal like 30 years ago. And I got that gig on the cruise, 70,000 tons of metal that I work for. And sort of unlike the unfortunate personality mismatch that was going on with Guar, I really clicked with CRUCHAN. They're from Ireland. They're super fun. Like we have a blast hanging out, just, you know, shooting the shit and doing whatever. And they had asked me to sing that gig because their hit song, Ride On, is like sung by a woman, but they don't have like a touring woman in the band. So they were like, anyone sing this? So I was like, I don't know shit about Irish singing, but I'll do it. And they liked Guar, so they actually gave me the gig. So I started taking online Irish singing lessons with the Online Academy of Irish Music, and I started learning how to do like all this ornamentation, like in the Sean Nose Irish singing. It's super hard, but super cool, and it's really enriched my sort of toolkit as a vocalist. And I'm definitely still doing that, and it's really fun because Sean Nose singing you can do like you know, a cappella. You don't need a drummer, so you don't have to wait
Right.
till
Right.
find the perfect mix of people to make music.
Right. If you can sing, if you're a singer, yeah. But then it's like, okay, well, let's find a singer.
But I don't really do the Sean Nose stuff live with them. They're more of a metal band, so it's more rock singing. But I do draw from that, like when I sing with CRUCHAN, and I'm on their new album. It's called The Living and the Dead. It's out on Despots Records, and it's actually really amazing. I'm super proud of the album. I'm just doing the vocals on 4 of the songs with Keith, but we have a super talented fiddle player, Audrey Trainer. She's like PhD or something super, and all the songs have stories based on like Irish history and Irish folklore, and it's cool. I'm playing a gig in Dublin, Ireland with them in October, so it should be fun, and hopefully
Wow.
a lot of festival gigs soon. I just fly over because they all have real jobs too, so then it's fun for them too.
Right.
And
Right.
do like, you know, festival gigs, and
Yeah.
it should be fun. And then I have a studio project called The Burned Over, which I'm super proud of, but the algorithm hates, like no one sees it when I post about it.
I
And
see it, but I see everything. So
I'm going down to Atlanta at the end of the month to finish that record. We have like uh 5 or 6 songs recorded of the entire album, but we put like 3 of them out over the past few years, and it's sort of based on the whole spiritualism period of the turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s in like upstate New York, all the seers and seances and things. And the guitarist of Yacht Rock Review, which is like a super big yacht rock band that I dressed, I made them like leisure suits. He's into metal, and he's been in like Skid Row and played with Butcher Walker and stuff. He's super talented and want to make a metal band. And so we've been collaborating on that project, and we got Bo Brannon from Withered, which is a killer metal band from Atlanta, on drums. And then I've got Myselin, which is like alt rock band, sort of out of the ashes of Mindless Fates, which is my industrial project in DC. It's also, I'm very proud of that album. So I do vocals on a few of the songs. And Miscellen. Then I've got a project with Johan, my boyfriend. It's doom metal. It kind of sounds like Candlemass, and we both really like
nice.
And speaking of beer nerds, Messiah, the singer of Candlemass, loves beer, and like we always go on pub crawls to his favorite like craft beer places in Stockholm when we go there, and I cannot keep up with him. Talk about like someone like,
yeah, well he's been drinking since the 80s, so he's got a few decades on you.
Well, it's just like you know, all the IPAs and stuff are like 8-9%, you know, doubles. Like that's kind of brutal. I can only put away a few of those before it's game over.
But speaking of beer, is perfect you mentioned this, and I also want to get into the yacht rock. So you're kind of like setting me up for stuff that I wanted to talk about. Like, why isn't there a Kylla Custom Rock beer, or is that something that's
no one has offered yet? I
really
guess. Yeah, you guys gave me a coffee, which is amazing. It's cool, but I don't feel like I'm the best coffee spokesman because I'm not a huge coffee drinker. I do enjoy an afternoon brew, and I especially love fine coffee, which you guys make.
Yeah, the one we do for you, it was perfect. Again, I kind of envision these things, and it's a pea berry that comes from Tanzania. It's a very, very specialized bean. They're hand sorted because the cherries of the coffee beans, they're very small and they look like peas, and everything you get in that batch has been separated. But the area of Tanzania is right near Mount Kilimanjaro, and I just had this idea. I was like, we need to do KILLAMANJAVA, and I should have had a bag here to show everybody. I'll put a link down.
We have you just like image it in, you know, Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. And you know, I do these things because I like to have obviously things going on with my friends and people that I respect and are cool, obviously, present company. But it's just fulfilling these things that I'm creating really in place of music and not having as much going on as a musician. And so my outlet is like still making guitars, you know, making coffees and coming up with ideas and things that really fit each individual that you know, we're partnering with. So I was really surprised because I know you aren't heavy with coffee, but it was like, this is just a cool idea. If she likes it, awesome. If not, that's cool too. We'll kind of shelve it. And you're like, yeah, that's cool.
It's really good. I hope people like it because it's a really good coffee. The main reason I'm not a huge coffee drinker is honestly like my stomach isn't great in the mornings. So like putting something acidic in it isn't great. So I tend to drink coffee in the afternoon, you know, sort of like a cafe kind of deal.
Yeah.
But it is really good coffee, and yeah, it doesn't mess with my stomach at all. And the layers of flavor are really intense. Speaking of metal people doing cool stuff, my friend Martin, who I met on the 70,000 tons cruise, where I also got the CRUCHAN gig, he actually just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. He's like a mountaineer, and his girlfriend, I think they met on the cruise. I can't remember, but she's American and he's from Slovakia, and they travel the world together, like doing mountain climbing stuff and like living in little like, you know, RVs. He works remotely, and they came through Charlottesville. But he's the only person I know like in the metal community. He's just like, oh yeah, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, no big deal, you know.
Yeah. It's really funny how things are connected. Nicole from Callius, who we did the session yesterday, she's a mountain climber. She did like the first stage of Everest.
Wow.
So it's like base camp that she got to. And it's funny, just randomly talking to you, it's like, oh yeah, you know someone else that also is a mountain climber. So I think it's anything that's like this extreme sort of activity, wrestling, mountain climbing, you know, hot rods, it all sort of gravitates.
Yeah, motorcycles, another big one. Yeah, I guess metal attracts people who like adrenaline or extreme things. Yeah, so that goes together. But extreme, oh yeah, and bodybuilding too. There's a lot of bodybuilders. I used to be a bodybuilder when I was actually wrestling, which was a long time ago. Before I made for wrestlers, I was a wrestler with Richmond Lucha Libre. I wasn't any good at it, just like
I don't know about that, because people can go online and probably Google this on YouTube. You basically have a ritual of just body slamming band members in hotel rooms. I don't know if you still do that.
That's a party trick. I mean, body slam is a very easy move to do, as well as like to guide someone through that does not know how to take a bump, which I think is the hardest thing about wrestling training. I see a lot of people that go through wrestling training programs and they can't even take a real bump, which is like fall. It's a kind of stunt fall where you fall on your back or your front without injuring yourself, right? It's really hard to do because it goes against every instinct. Like if someone pushes you over forward, you're gonna put your hands or your knees down. You're gonna fuck up your wrists and your knees, and you have to like fall and catch yourself here, like with your elbows. So you have to fall like a board front, and then back. You have to like arch your back up and fall on your shoulders and like slap the ground, distributing the force out. And you can even do it like if you get really good at it, you can just slap to here, and you got to tuck your chin so you don't whiplash yourself, because you will whiplash yourself. First of all, you fuck up your back, and you're gonna whiplash yourself or hit your head. So a lot of times they give you like a tennis ball that you have to keep under your chin. But like if someone just pushes you over on the sidewalk, it goes against everything to not put your ass down. You know, like you're gonna put your ass down, and you're probably not gonna do anything with your head in particular, or you're gonna like grit your teeth, which is gonna fuck that up, you know. So learning to do that, you basically have to retrain your basic instincts. But I will say this is a life skill that has been great, because I consistently fall down without injuring myself. Like when I'm walking on ice in Sweden, I fall all the time on ice, and I never sprain my ankle or twist my wrist or anything. I'll just wrestling fall. Also, people's kids really love watching people fall down. This is very funny. So like if you want to entertain some kids, just have them like tap you or hit you with a pillow, and then you take like a full bump, and they're like, ah! You know, the coolest thing.
Right. You're definitely the cool aunt that comes to visit for holidays.
That's good, because I'm not gonna have kids, but I enjoy being like cool Aunt Kim. I had a problem with that. I went to like my friend's house in Norway, and like their kids, I don't really know how to interact with kids. So I'm like, hey, hit me with a pillow. And then I would like fall down like crazy. And then they thought this was so fun, they wouldn't stop. Like it was dinner time, and they're still like attacking me with pillows while I'm trying to eat and stuff, you know. So
you need to ring the bell, say ding. All right, round's over.
To institute the bell, like the rounds, you know, like. And
that's so awesome. Well, speaking of Norway and Sweden, this is off subject, but I just want to know, like, why don't they have AC over there? It's just not hot enough. Yes. I know you sweat profusely over there when it's warm.
This is more dramatic and controversial than my like Guar experience.
Uh-oh. Here we go. So, like, can we talk about this? Go.
Like, I would live in Europe full time if there's air conditioning ever. Okay, so European people, they don't have air conditioning because they contest that they traditionally haven't needed it, that it's never hot in the summer there, that anytime it's hot, it's just a heat wave. Well, sorry, I've been traveling to Europe for the past like 30 years during the summer, and it is always hot. Like maybe not as hot as the American South, but it's always very hot in the buildings and things like that. And like you could solve this. Do you not have, like, if you live in a warm place, do you not have heat because it rarely ever gets cold, like, and you're just gonna freeze if it does? You know, I don't understand that. It's not a cold front, it's winter. Like if you don't need your heat, at least you have it available like when you do. But they don't have the concept of central HVAC. Like it's been invented since like the 20s, but they don't have like ductwork and stuff. They have all those like portable units. So they're incredibly energy inefficient, and like electricity is way more expensive over there. So people won't run them, or they just don't have them installed. And then they use all sorts of propaganda like air conditioning makes you sick, it's bad for the environment, like you know, we don't have summer, it's not hot, like Americans are pussies, you know, like sorry, it's like night. I live in Sweden, and our apartment is like on the fifth floor in a black building. It is over 90 degrees, aka like 30 degrees in our apartment, and it'll be like really nice outside. It gets hot in the buildings, and like I break out in hives if I sweat. I can't imagine if you have to wear a suit or something. It's awful. Like I can't sleep at night. The first thing I did was go buy like the most efficient, like the biggest, most expensive portable air conditioner, but it doesn't work for shit, and it runs all the time. So I feel really bad. And when we leave, I can't really like leave it running. So I come back to like a 90-degree house, and it has to like, you know, run. It's fucking awful. Like, and it's not like it's even a building from 1500 or something. It was built 2 years ago. And they put it in a dryer, and the dryer like doesn't have a vent outside. So when you run the dryer, it just heats the whole apartment. So I just don't understand. And they don't have garbage disposals. That hasn't been invented over there. Like there's so many things that Europe does right and way better than America. Like city planning, you know, centralized things, public transportation, like healthcare, things like this. I'm not trying to get into politics, but
it's a fact. It's like what's going on there.
Here, you know, civilization, but like, come on, with like, it's been invented since 1920, where you can just like say, what temperature would you like to be in this building? Thank you. Non-issue. Right. And like, if you don't need it, or you're environmentally conscious, you don't have to use it. But if someone like me breaks out in hives, like they try to tell you to open the window, like, well, it's hot outside too.
The heat is in both places.
Yeah, and then also like there's no fucking screens on the windows. And sorry, like your screen doesn't use any environmental, you know, energy. Like, why is there, if your method of air conditioning is opening the window, why isn't there a screen? And then I'm like, oh, maybe it's because they don't have mosquitoes. So it's like a wall of mosquitoes in Sweden. Like there's so many mosquitoes. Like I would look like a leper when I wake up if I were to open the window at night. Like fuck y'all. Like what is wrong with you? Like
it's that they love that vampire blood, so they seek you out.
Yeah, it's a problem. No, I think I have a theory, and it's maybe wrong, but I have yet to disprove it, that people that have type O blood are very attractive to mosquitoes or bugs. And like everyone I speak to that's just like a mosquito magnet like me has type O, but I don't know about that.
Is it positive or negative? It doesn't matter. Any type of
positive, but I don't think that matters. I mean, there can be other factors that make you a mosquito magnet for sure, but everyone I know that I've talked to that has like an extreme problem with just walking outside and getting swarmed, like
do they have bug spray at least? It's effective?
Oh, yeah. Well, like, you know, DEET is like frowned upon. You can get it. You have to get like the pharmacy. But usually they'll give you like the hippie stuff, which a lot of the hippie stuff works. Like it's okay, but not for like, we have these woods behind our place in Sweden. Right. Yeah. And like there's these mosquitoes that'll like bite through jeans and stuff. And like the hippie shit ain't touching that, you know, like give me like the DEET bomb.
The mosquitoes in Sweden are like smoking cigarettes, sitting by the window, just waiting. Oh,
that leads me into one of the fan questions. Someone asked me what was my favorite Swedish swear word, and it's "myggjavel," which means fucking mosquito.
I gotta write that down.
Yeah, the word "javel" actually means devil, but you would use it to like in the colloquial context of fucking, so like, or goddamn or something like that. Right. So you can add like "javel" on the end of something. Like if there's like a bicyclist that was like cutting me off or something, I'd be like "javel," you know, or like things like that, you know. But you can kind of add it on the end of a word and be like fuck that thing. but it means like mosquito devil actually, or like you can also use it like if you want to say like fucking shit or something, you'd be like jävla skit. It's like SKIT, like the band Wheat System, you know, like it's pronounced wheat. Like they do that sound in Swedish for SK. It's only Swedish, not Norwegian. I don't think Danes do it. Like the word for ham is SKINKA, and it's pronounced quinka. And then tying it back to the cars, the word for Chevrolet. I guess it's a French name, but it's an American word, right? It's an American company.
Sure.
Chevy. It's Hueva. Like, come on, you know, it's not Hueva, it's Chevy. Like, or the gas station Shell. Well,
it almost sounds like a very silly form of Klingon.
Yeah. And then some words aren't like that. Like the word for forest is skog. SKOG. That's the same in like Norwegian and I think Danish. Wow. But it's not hwog.
Right.
It's like one of the things where you have the like English as a second language. We have a lot of nonsensical pronunciation things. And it's just the nonsensical pronunciation of Swedish.
That's funny. So do you find learning Swedish is pretty easy for you? Because I know you traveled there back and forth, so you're even before you lived there, were you learning the Sweden as another language, or is it just more recent?
I speak fluent Norwegian. I speak German too. I learned German formally in school, and I've learned German for like 10 years. I would say it took me like 5 years to become like fluent, you know, to where you're not like amazing at it, but I can have a conversation without switching to English and understand what people say back to me. Then after I felt like I've been learning German long enough, I started dating this Norwegian guy about 15 years ago, and I wanted to surprise him by learning his language so that when I came to Norway, I could understand what everyone's saying and say things. And his response was basically like, my ears are burning. Like, why are you doing that? Shut up. What are you saying? No, just don't. Just stop. What is this even? You know, like Scandinavian people don't really want you to learn their language.
Right. It's like, well, I can't talk shit about you now.
Yeah. It's a secret weapon that I have, actually. I like that. Because there's tons of American expats living in Sweden. They have a pretty open immigration policy, and like, not you have to, you know someone or get a job. You know, you have to, like, someone has to like get you a 90-a-day fiance visa or like a job or something, you know. But it's not like Norway where they're like, we need you to be like independently wealthy or like, you know, here for 10 years or something before you can stay. But anyway, most Americans that live there don't speak great Swedish or any Swedish, because all Swedes speak really good English and they love to practice. So like when I go to the store, I speak in Swedish, and it's fucking infuriating. A lot of times they will respond in English, or like when I order at a restaurant and I look to Johan, I'm like, did I fuck that up? Like they just notice my accent or something and they want to be accommodating or practice. And then it kind of makes me feel like, well, I don't get to practice now, or like, you know, what did I say it wrong? But I'm pretty good at Norwegian, but it's a curse with the Swedish, because Norwegian and Swedish are really, really similar. I would say they're almost like dialects of the same language. You can definitely understand it. And since I've never had to learn another language that is really similar to a language I've learned, but not like it. So I'm like, the last 3 years, I've been actively trying to unlearn my Norwegian and learn Swedish. And people are like, who's your Norwegian girlfriend? You know, or like, you know.
That's when you answer in German and it screws them all up.
Like, for instance, the word, that happens too. Like one time I was in Germany, like, I forget where I was, but I was speaking Swedish with the Swedish band I was working with. And the German airline had lost my bag. And I had left them a phone message about where to like leave it, and they called me back in German, and I'm sitting there speaking Swedish, and like I had to say just my phone number in German, and it took me like 5 minutes because I was still in thinking like in Swedish numbers mode, you know. But anyway, yeah, learning another similar language is hard because you get the words all mixed up in that part of your brain that's like foreign language part where you go to like, you know, I think it's difficult to speak more than one foreign language that are similar at once. If they're totally different, like if you're speaking French and German or Japanese and Finnish, if you're a fucking super genius, you know, like, then you can kind of differentiate, but you got to kind of get in a mode. And I guess I've only been technically learning Swedish for 3 years, and the last two languages I learned, it took me about 5 years to get a fluency. So I'm not beating myself up, but my comprehension is that like 100%. So I can exist there. Like I know what's going on. I understand everything. But when I speak back, I kind of sound like a grade school kid, you know? So like I can say everything I need to say. It's like, I have been in a band. I have a band now. Like I'm here with my boyfriend. You know, we live also in Virginia.
Right.
I imagine it's kind of painful to listen to.
Right. Well, but like you said, they all want to show off their English skills, so it's just like, all right, well.
Yeah, it makes it worse. Like if I go to a country and they can't speak the language, I have to figure it out, right? And like Sweden is hard for that. You don't have to figure it out if you're an English speaker. So
right.
It's bad practice.
Something you post a lot too is the food's all tube liquefied. Like that's a big
tube
thing.
Foods. I love tube foods. So like Sweden is famous for culinary hate crimes. Like but like their Mexican food, which they apparently never consulted a Mexican about, or like they just looked at a picture.
Right. They asked a bunch of Norwegians.
And Africa pizza with bananas and peanuts on it. I don't understand that. Definitely culinary hate crime, but they do have these things called tube foods, or I call them tube foods because they come in a tube, like a toothpaste tube, right. And it's like soft cheese flavored like bacon or shrimp or ham, and it's delicious. And you squeeze it. It's kind of like Scandinavian easy cheese, but less chemically. It kind of tastes like those Laughing Cow cheese wheels, you know, the soft cheese kind of thing, but with bacon flavor in it. I'm pretty sure, like, it's vegan because there can't be anything natural in there.
It's 100% GMO from a lab. It's like what they have on the space station because everything up there is like tubes. So maybe they're just kind of transitioning to the future. I wish everything was in tubes. It would be so much easier. Just
yeah, they put like mayonnaise in the tubes, and they also put caviar in tubes. My boyfriend ate some toothpaste caviar for breakfast. It's not really caviar in the traditional sense, but it's like salmon eggs. It basically tastes like salt, but it's definitely
salty toothpaste.
Yeah, it's one of those polarizing acquired taste things like Marmite or Vegemite, where if you've never had it and you just take a big old bite of it, it's like, oh god, you know.
It's like people eat and love this stuff. What the shit? That's funny. Well, does go ahead.
The only time I've toured with Swedes, they like every kind of city that we were in, they would pick up some candy that's like, oh, we have these all the time at home, you got to try this. And it was always the worst fucking thing I've ever, like the one I really remember is these little like fish gummy things that you would think taste like licorice or something like this because they're like jet black, but they actually taste like salt and vinegar.
Oh, yeah.
What the
salty licorice. That's another Scandinavian polarizing taste. I am on team salt licorice. However, if you give it to like 99% of Americans, they'll definitely like feel like their mouth is on fire. It's just pure. So that the levels of salt licorice go from, it's basically the same concept of licorice. Like, so most Americans don't even like black licorice. Then you take the real stuff with the anise or whatever. My boyfriend says it tastes like anus.
That's an American candy for sure.
But then instead of making it sweet, you make it salty, which it's pretty good if you don't expect it to be sweet, but you have to change that from your mind because no other gummies are salty here, right? Then like then you go up from there. So I actually don't even really like the just basic salty licorice. I like the like fuck your face with ammonium chloride super salty stuff, because then it's almost like it's like the atomic fireball. Instead of being sweet and spicy, it's just really salty. So like
Yeah,
Salt flavored
was,
salt.
it tasted like the way bad fish smells, like live fish. But oh, I could go on for hours about how bad that was.
oh yeah, it's a good prank too. Like if you get unsuspecting people, sort of like when no one knew what wasabi was, and you try to get them to eat wasabi, you know. But oh yeah, that was another question from the peanut gallery was, have you ever tried surströmming, which is
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
oh yeah, so that's Swedish. There's different fermented fish delicacies from the Nordic countries that basically all originated from the time when it was cold and they had nothing to eat, and they're like, hey, you know, Bjarne, do you remember that fish that we buried last year on the beach? Does you think that is still good? You know, that kind of thing. And then they eat it and they get sick and die or not, you know. So in levels of grossness, surströmming, which is the Swedish rotten fish dish, actually takes the cake, because I have not tried it, nor would anyone of sane mind. But when you see people on YouTube do it, they fuck it up because they open the can right in front of them, and the can is just basically like fermented fish guts that have been stewing in that can. It's fermented herring, so it is literally rotten fish, but you can eat it somehow for some reason. I don't know how, but you can. But the people who like it, the smell is awful. The taste is also awful, but not as awful as the smell. The texture is the worst thing. So apparently you're supposed to open the can, you know, outside, way away from where you're eating, and drain the juice. And then you take bits of the surströmming and you mix it up with like red onion and like crisp bread and potato or something. And that's how you're supposed to eat it. But I know one person who likes that stuff. Mostly it's grandpa food from the time when they didn't have a lot of food.
Wow. That's
but
like in Iceland, the rotten shark.
Yeah, so that's number 2 on the Nordic fermented fish grossness chart. So I have tried that, and it just tastes like piss. I would just call it cubes of piss shark. So it's actually just a shark that ferments in ammonia. So it literally is piss shark, but somehow the ammonia takes the poison out of it or something. So you can
the lesser poison.
Yeah, but I think that you do technically pair this with akavit. So I think like the proper way to eat harkarl is after many akavits, proving that you're badass enough to like handle the piss shark cubes, you know. But it's not something that I really know a lot of people enjoy either. Then there's lutefisk, which is from Norway, which is not horrible actually. It's like preserved cod in lye.
This is soap or this is a meal?
This is a meal, but it's pretty much like soap, but it's not so terrible. Just tastes like, it doesn't really taste like much, honestly. Like a little bit sour, a little bit, you eat it with potatoes. Like it's not gross, but it's not great either.
It sounds gross. Does not sound appealing. Even so when I did eat fish, I would be like, no lye, because I remember lye from Fight Club, and it burned. Oh, yeah. It's like, oh, you don't want to eat that.
It's also that what was it, Drop Dead Gorgeous, the movie from the 90s about the beauty queens in Minnesota that murder each other, and they're like, lutefisk is cold fish that's been salted and soaked in lye for some they serve it at the high school cafeteria. Anyway, so yeah, the coolest one, which I've never tried, which I don't want to try, but I think is awesome, is from Greenland, and it's called KIVIAK. And what they do is this is the Greenlandic thing. So the Inuit people, I don't know if you call them Inuits from Greenland, the Greenlandic people, what is the fucking nomenclature? I don't know. Anyway,
Greenlandians.
They don't grow things there, you know, like, and there's always been a mystery, like, how do they not get scurvy, right? Because nothing grows, it's permafrost. But like you eat every part of the animal. So like you get vitamin C and stuff from like skins and organ meats and things like that. Whereas if you just eat the kind of parts of animals that we eat, you don't actually get vitamin C, but their culture, they get those nutrients from there. Anyway, this Greenlandic delicacy, you take a seal carcass and you hollow it out, and then you take 400 seabirds called auks. I guess they're like a seagull kind of thing, but this specific bird will work. If you fuck with this recipe at all in any way, you will get botulism and die. So you take 400 seabirds and you put them in the seal and you stitch it up and you cover the seal in its own blubber, its own fat, and then you bury it for like 3 months and you let it ferment, and the seabirds liquefy and turn into the flavor of like a mature cheddar cheese. Apparently, from people that have tried it is the least gross of the like fermented things from the Nordic countries. But I'm not gonna try it. And there's this one like story from like sort of a Greenlandic village that had like a KIVIAK that went bad and got botulism, and they ate it at like a funeral, and then they served a wedding and a bunch of people died, and they served the same fucking KIVIAK at the funeral, and then a bunch more people died. It's not funny, but it's fucked up.
They served the same one.
Yeah.
The funeral for the people that died.
From eating, yeah, but they clearly didn't realize that it was the KIVIAK that was the problem. So
that's the most brutal topic. That has to be a song. That has to be a metal song.
Yeah, you eat the liquefied birds whole, like,
and then you throw it out to the crowd and they eat it as well.
I feel like, you know, you guys are vegan, so like I was thinking about how metal that is from a vegan perspective.
Yeah,
like, capitation song or something. But
yeah.
anyway.
I mean, I appreciate, okay, there's nothing there. This is where you live. You eat everything that's there. Yeah. Like that. Okay, that's how it used to be. When you lived somewhere, you know, I can understand that, but why you would eat something rotten and fermented is like, it's 2023. Go to Iceland. They've got food there that's not rotten that you can eat.
Yeah, the hot dogs are pretty good. I'm sure they have vegan hot dogs.
Yeah, wherever, or like a lot of stuff's coming out of Sweden, like IKEA is like at the forefront of this. I know that's like a Nike to Swedes.
Oh yeah, they have vegan meatballs and all that. Oh yeah, my friend is in Denmark right now because she's Danish. Her mom's Danish, and she's sort of like rediscovering her mom's side of the family. And she posted that she got vegan liver pasta, and liver pasta is like a thing they eat where it's like liver paste. Kind of liver pate. It's like liver pate.
Right.
I was skeptical of this, but it's actually really good. It just tastes like meat flavored butter. It's just fat, you know, basically. But she posted it, and like all her Danish relatives were laughing about it because it's totally like the wrong texture and flavor and stuff. But they like, well, just don't try to imitate. I don't see how you could imitate that with a vegan alternative without it being something like refried beans. But there's definitely a lot of really good, you know, vegan alternatives to things now.
Yeah, I'm super happy. You know, it's seeing and more people that aren't vegan eating the stuff, saying, "Hey, this is pretty good." Like that's the ultimate goal, is to have more people eating less animals.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. So,
but yeah,
like you said, it's a totally different thing than like people eating like 80 chicken wings and throwing everything else out. You know, like they're eating everything from what lives there.
Right. Like your Native Americans, a lot of people want to make that argument that are like, well, Native Americans used to hunt, you know, animals. I was like, yeah. And they had nothing else to eat. And two, they used a bow and arrow, and there was 100,000 buffalo, and one fed their whole tribe. So let's not use that argument to defend, you know, chicken wings and cheeseburgers. Yeah. Right. But
I do have some hunting friends though, and I think that I know there are like big game hunters and fucked up people out there, but the few hunters that I know personally, like one of them was on like that Alone show and stuff. They all super do like respect it. I like primitive technique, use everything of the animal, and like, you know. So I don't have a problem with that. Like factory farming, fuck that. You know, like,
yeah, no, I mean nobody that understands that would support it. You know, we have all kind of agree. It's like, you know, dog meat in these animal farms in Southeast Asian. Like everybody's on board here with that being wrong, and not supporting it. But you know, it's just a process of learning about things that you're putting into your body and deciding whether or not that's cool for you. Everyone has that process. But I want to mention when you said the word cheese and I saw Jack light up.
That was confusion purely.
Oh, was it? I
Yeah.
thought you piqued your interest. Like, wait a minute, that rotten thing tastes like cheese.
It sounded like a Mad Lib. Like, so what you do is you get a seal, and then you get 400 of these specific birds, bury it, and then it turns into cheese.
It turns into cheese, right? Yeah,
it's like a alchemical process, really. I'm down with cheese alchemy. Sounds like a jam band or something.
Yeah.
You can just imagine like someone drunk in a Scandinavian bar telling you about this and be like, no, like you have to be pulling my leg.
Right. And it has to be 400 of these birds.
Yeah.
Like it's 400.
You have to
like,
fill the seal carcass, and it has to be enough to feed the feast of the village or something to make it worth the effort, I guess. But
yeah, the 400's the magic number that the bacteria has, where it's just enough to make cheese, but it won't kill you with this particular species of bird.
I guess you can cut the serving in half if you have a smaller seal. You know, seals really range in size more than ox.
Yeah, you're getting a baby seal and putting baby birds in it. So let's
speaking
not
of
do that.
Swedish curse words, they like all the Scandinavians have like messed up names for each other, and one of the things that Swedish people call Norwegians is seal clubbers. So it's like jävla selklubbare. And I make a pun on that because people make fun of me because I say things Norwegian when I speak Swedish. So when you're in a bar and you're drinking and beer, and you know how here you say that you're going to go break the seal when you pee for the first time after drinking beer, I say I'm going to go club the seal, but in Swedish. And I say it in a Norwegian accent and people laugh. So it was
right.
A good
That's funny. Oh my god, dying.
All right, should we get some of these questions that people wanted me to answer? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you really kind of covered most of them.
I think we got there in a like
all the good stuff. I mean,
line on the map, you know, kind of.
Yeah, we're like Charlie on Always Sunny. We're like, this is. But like a lot of people want to know about you bleeding on the rock clothes that you're making, and sure, like I've seen your hands, and they're like they look like a boxer's hands because
I have a lot of calluses
cut and bled so much on that.
So I bleed a lot from the pins. Like the way I work is I'll pin things up, and I have to use pretty intense pins to get through like leather and denim. So then once I've designed the thing and pinned it all up, then I sew it, and it kind of looks like I have a cat or something. I'm allergic to cats, so I don't have one, but it'll scratch me up a lot. And then, you know, a lot of times I'll like prick myself with a pin somewhere and I don't notice. So it definitely like there's an old wives' tale. I'm not sure if the wives came up with it or something, but they call them old wives' tales, that if you're sewing a wedding dress and you don't bleed on it, it's bad luck for the marriage. So I just sort of think about it like, if I bleed on your stage gear, it's good luck for your tour, you know, or something. But
you'd have vials of it sitting in your studio. You're like, oh, a little bit for you, a little bit for you.
I get real nervous when I sew something white. Then I really have to like be conservative with the amount of pins that I put in there and stuff and things like that.
Right. I would have to say just real quick, you know, I've gotten multiple things from you and Simon as well. I appreciate a lot of times you're upcycling material, so you're not necessarily adding to animal, you know, abuse and things like that, because you get material that yes is leather or suede, but you're reusing stuff that was already purchased, and that was a big thing for me. I thought that was really cool. That it's a big part of what you do.
Thanks. Yeah. So upcycling is twofold useful for me. Like, one, you can feel good about it because you're recycling things. I love recycling and repurposing things. I hate throwing things away or creating waste or contributing to like fast fashion type of awful things for the environment. But also, like when I would go to a fabric store and buy materials, especially like high quality materials for a garment, it would be like $200 or $300. And I'm like, how much would I have to charge for this? Just if the materials are alone that much money, and then I have to take like 12 hours sewing it and then cover my costs on top of that. Like, this is no wonder people charge like $1,000 for a custom jacket. And who can afford that in the metal business? Like, who makes that kind of money and still can do this? Not many people, you know. And I work with some of the biggest brands out there and they can barely afford my prices. So I'm like, do I want to outprice the scene and market that I want to be in? No. So I've got to figure out a way to do this for the price. And that is the way, like getting used or upcycled leather. I take old leather jackets, I break them down, old canvas tents, things like that. I clean them industrially. I process the materials and I repurpose them. It creates a cool look because the leather's already been broken in and stuff, and the denim's already been broken in. But it also, you can use really high quality materials for like a reasonable price, and then I can offer the things at a reasonable price. And like, I have a lot of vegan clients, so I have a lot of options. I hate using fake leather. It's awful. Like, it usually splits. Anyone will tell you like it doesn't last very long. They've come up with some better options like cork and things like that now. And
banana, they're trying to do a banana type leather for like shoes, but I don't know that they make it in like reams of material.
All those weird things like cactus leather and stuff, they don't make it big enough to make garments out of it yet, or make it cost efficient or whatever. But like, it's good for like wallets or something, I guess. Yeah. But I try to use like coated denim and things like that, or coated spandex to give like a leather effect without using like the fake vinyl stuff, because it just has a lifetime of 2 or 3 months. It'll split and it feels like a trash bag when you play live and that stuff. It's awful. So if I'll use real leather for anyone that's not vegan, and if you're vegan, I try to use like coated denims and cork and, you know, wax things and whatnot to create like effect while being comfortable and durable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the main thing with your clothes is, from people touring the world to wrestlers, like, you're known for your stuff being like pretty much indestructible. Like, you're making your clothes, like, again, coming full circle, like that 1940s sewing machine, like that mentality of the company made that is how you make all of your gear. And that's probably the primary reason your name is known throughout all the communities, because one, you stand behind your stuff. You're pretty straightforward.
Please wash it first.
Right. Yeah. Like, don't send me your trunks with like pubis in it. I'm not trying to go through that.
False milk, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, I'm a performer. I play in bands. I was a wrestler, and I know what I like to wear on stage and what works, right? And I also know like what something looks like or feels like after you play like a hour and a half set, like at an outdoor festival or something, and then you got to do that again for like the next 20 days, and you don't know if you're going to get a laundromat or a day off and with the sink or something, you know. So how do you make this work? And there was a lot of trial by fire in the early days, but I also kind of shoot myself in the foot. Like, Creator bought stage gear from me like 10 years ago, and they haven't needed new stage gear. Like, Venter, the drummer, is still wearing the same shit I made him like 10 years ago. I'm like, man, you know, learn from Apple. They make their iPhones like self-destruct in like 2 years. So you got to buy the new model that's just the same as the old model. And like, I don't know, morally, I couldn't get behind that. I want to, you know, like make my stuff last a long time. At the same time, like Machine Head's been wearing their wardrobe they have now for like 5 years. The way they tour, it's crazy, with like long 2-hour sets and pyro. And at the same time, at some point I have to stop saying that like I can't fix this up anymore. Like it's sort of out of warranty, you know, like this
Right.
in better days. Braun Strowman from WWE wore the same pair of like post-apocalyptic camo ring jeans that I made him for like 6 years, like the same pants. And I even told him, I was like, you've been wearing those same pants like on TV in front of millions of people so long, I will just make you another pair. Just like you've gotten your money's worth out of there. Like actually it's kind of like a durability test. So,
Right.
you know, and he was like, no, I just love these. It's sort of like chasing the dragon on like, you know, what gear feels good for you. But yeah, it lasts a long time. And a lot of people that do what I do, I mean, there's not that many of us. There's probably like 5 to 10 people in the world that make like stage gear and wrestling gear on a level like this, or level doing it like as your job, not as a hobby.
Right.
But a lot of them are like fashion designers coming from a fashion design background, and I'm the one that's kind of like a performer coming from a performance background. But at the same time, then I might not necessarily do the things they do as well as they do. So everyone has their own strengths, and one of mine is durability and comfort and appealing and, you know, friendly.
And as you mentioned and see on a regular basis, your style is like copped more than any other style of designer out there. So the fact that that's also piled on top of the durability and things, like you have that sense of style that other people are copying. I don't want to say, but they're being influenced by.
I try to keep a positive mindset about that, but like, you know, if I were to have a therapy dump about it, you know, like certain people bother me when they directly lift, but it's usually like when they directly lift and they're disrespectful about it. Like, you know, if like there's this one person that clearly like copied me and then even used like the chaos logo like I use, and someone was kind of hey guys, and then they tried to claim that they did it first or something, you know, and okay, but
no, I mean that's completely disrespectful. Like you're taking my trademark. Okay, you like the style, that's cool, you're gonna make some stuff like it, but don't put your garbage out with a logo that looks close to mine. That's no.
Well, I've had people send me reference pictures that they want something like from a designer that doesn't make a garment anymore, won't make it, and I'm like, the way I go about that, I'm like, did you ask the original designer first that they would make this for you? And if they said no or didn't, you know, they won't make it, then I'll make you something similar but not exact. So like, I don't want to copy their work, but we can make you something like this, inspired by it, but change it a bit to make it your own. And same thing, like if I make stage gear for one person, I don't want to just make a copy of that for someone else. I want to change it so it's unique. So sometimes like it's not been enough of a change for people, but at the same time, it's like, if you want an exclusive license to this design, you got to pay me a lot more than like $250. So,
right. Yeah, and it's the same with guitars.
Buy out the design so no one else can make it ever.
Right.
Then you're gonna add like 2 or 3 zeros onto the end of that.
yeah, and some rotten bird carcass seal cheese for life.
Some KIVIAK. Yeah.
And then the other people will still copy it because it's cool.
Right. Yeah, and then you back to square zero with it. You know, that's like a whole conversation into getting into things. Like I ultimately, like with the guitar stuff, I had to just come down to like, well, if I did something first, I knew it was innovative, and the people out there that were behind us saw we kind of did it first.
Yeah.
And that's like that's your takeaway, because like I've gone back and like to this day, I'll see a guitar. There's a major guitar company out right now that's decided to do a headstock almost identical to mine. It's a little slight difference, and it's different from their shape that they're known for, because I'll see
you're talking about.
Yeah. It's one of the 2 or 3 companies I just cannot stand anything, and they're losing artists left and right. So it's not just me, it's people are kind of fed up with this corporate shenanigans, let's say. But
Yeah.
I'll see pictures of a guitar player, and I'm like, I'll double take him, and I'll tell Simon, I'll be like, hey, what, like, one of these things is not like the other. It's like, is that one of yours? I'm like, no, but you couldn't really tell until you see this other logo on it. But there's only so many shapes you can do. There's only so many, and with your clothing as well, there's only so many ways you can sew different things together. But
with alternative clothing, there's like a subset of accents that I guess, Ray Brown or maybe like the gay fetish scene, invented in the 80s, the 70s, and then people been remixing those elements. You can get really crazy with some of the like molded latex stuff, but I don't think it's necessarily like cost efficient or comfortable to wear on stage.
Right. And people aren't doing that in mass where they're getting brands of manufactured latex costumes confused. But when it's like, you're a huge company, you could just, why are you doing this? Just keep the thing that you're sort of known for already. But
it doesn't make any sense.
It's the highest form of mediocrity to copy something exactly. Because my company, before I was involved with it, just literally copied someone else's thing, and I still to this day have to fight the keyboard warriors. It's like, that was done before me, I'll never do that again. I acknowledge that was a copy of something else that was decided before I was involved. So I'll own it, but I'm like, don't keep giving me shit because you'll not ever see that coming from my company. Like, you go back,
sorry, we're bad, take accountability.
It's like apologize. 8 years is when that stopped, before I was on board. But you put stuff out there and just hope people like it. And again, if it's the first cool thing and people can acknowledge that, that's like, I have to be able to sleep at night. Like, I did that. I know I did that. A handful of people.
I asked people to send me images for like patches and imagery they want on their gear, and like apparently someone sent me some imagery that they hadn't checked with the artist, and then I printed it out, and then I get the brunt of the keyboard warrior assault, and I'm like, I don't know here. Like, that's my client sent me the imagery. I don't have like a research team on copyright, but like, I take accountability and I apologize. I'm not gonna give you like royalties on it. This dude paid like $150.
Yeah, be like, I'll give you 12 cents or the equivalent of 19,000 Spotify plays. Here's your royalty.
Different thing than what like Shein does or something, with like where they got hit by the RICO lawsuit, where they just knowingly lift like small designers' designs and manufacture and market them in mass as a targeted business model, versus like taking inspiration that's a little too close from someone else's thing and being like, whoops, that was too close, pissed you off, or like, I didn't know that this was yours too, and sorry, like, won't do it again.
Right. That's the thing. It's like, I made a mistake, I apologize, and I won't do it again. And that's got to be enough for people on a professional level to understand.
It's the whole witch hut internet mentality. I'm like, what is the end goal of this? You want to just like bury everyone for any sort of small flaw? Like glass houses, really. Everyone
it's a lot easier to pick on like a medium or small level designer, builder, or whatever for this kind of thing, but like it's especially heinous to me when you see companies punching down, like lifting a smaller designer's stuff, but they're already a huge entity. Like, why are you doing that without crediting the person that designed this? Like, you don't you clearly don't have to be doing this. You're making the conscious choice,
right? Because they can do it. Like another company, they have more lawyers than guitars I've built. So if I have something that's infringing, I can't do anything. But at the same time, well, you know what? We saw this thing of yours. We're going to go ahead and take that because we can, and we know there's nothing you can do about it. So the integrity of these companies, and there's so many companies, they're changing hands day after day, like who owns this company now, who owns that company. So there's no consistency, and again, you see people in mass leaving particular companies as artists, and that's pretty bad when someone has like their own signature model and is paid to play something, and they leave to go to another company to and are buying something from another company. It's like, well, what does that say about, you know, company A versus B?
Right.
But you just have,
I think quality and customer service always shine. So like, yes, it's just, if you're designing anything in any field, someone is going to copy you if you come up with a good idea. But like, does that person care? Like, you know, small and medium-sized businesses and artisans like should or would typically, you know, like care about their artists and the design and like make things that are quality and care about the quality. So like that's what you kind of pay for. And I feel like a lot of people might go for the cheaper, easier option from the bigger thing, but then if they, you know, you get what you pay for and you're going to come back. So like I've certainly had that happen too.
Yeah, then the drummer's not going to be wearing that 10 years later.
No.
If he gets 10 months out of it, he's lucky.
Yeah. If you have a drummer 10 years later.
Yeah. If it's like the Spinal Tap drummer, 10 years later, you've had 13 drummers.
Oh my God.
Man, this has been awesome. And I knew it would. Like I told Jack, I was like, man, it's going to be crazy. And he's like, how do you mean? I was like, oh, well, crazy like good, not crazy like it's going to be, you know, people pulling their hair out, no pun intended. But
yeah, that's easy with me.
Right. Yeah. That's why, if people don't know, Kim's always got different hair. Follow her on social media and find out why.
Areata, which is an immune condition where your hair is attacked like a disease. It's an autoimmune condition. So I lost my hair when I was 16, and I wear wigs all the time, or sometimes I don't wear a wig. And a lot of times, if I'm being silly, you will be the recipient of my wig at an opportune moment, you know, to the hair off.
The fun you have.
You can be the recipient of a body slam or a wig at any point in time. But I actually just started, someone put me in touch with the National Alopecia Areata Foundation, and I'm going to get more involved in my community as sort of like a peer advocate and legislative liaison and do something. September is National Alopecia Areata Awareness Month, and a lot of my friends and fans aren't even aware of why I wear wigs. So like I want to speak out because a lot of people are in my situation, and I think I can help them with their confidence. So
yeah, no, it's so awesome. You know, all these things that you have a part of your life that you've really owned and made the best of. You know, I see all these things now about the new Hellraiser, like, oh, it's going to be female. And then I'm like, sending them to you. I'm like, why is this not you? Like, you are the female Cenobite. Like, that's one of your looks. It's like, you guys. And then Star Trek did the same thing with one of their characters. I was like, this is like almost.
That Star Trek character lifted my Vulvatron makeup somehow.
Yeah. It was like looking at it and then talking to you about it. It's like, yeah, that was my idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's like ADHD or whatever, but any sort of conversation just starts at point A and then goes like, you know, an ant farm all the way around.
Yeah, it's the roller coaster, but a good kind.
Yeah. Hopefully it's entertaining to listen to, and hopefully I didn't get too far in the weeds with the GWAR stuff. But I think it's important to talk honestly about that kind of stuff, even if like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we both have a history of that, and it's just like stuff happens, it goes the way it goes. I don't have any ill will or animosity to those guys. I mean, we were at the GWAR Bar, which is in Richmond here. It's an amazing restaurant. They have some of the best vegan stuff I've seen. I'm like, this is like incredible. Like, we went there like the grand opening when they had it a couple years ago, you know. I
think we were both there, and I brought Ray the penguin. Yeah, the they had the GWAR tiki drink.
Yeah. We still have the cups. We got the commemorative tiki cups. They're awesome.
No, it's a great bar. And Wonderland is great too. They have like wrestling themed stuff from our old wrestling fed.
Oh wow.
We used to do
Yeah.
bar crafts there for like holidays, and Chad still has this thing. I was there after the Toxic Holocaust and Havoc show the other night, and he still has this drawing where you like, you know, when you're in school and you trace your hand and you draw like a turkey for
Yeah,
things.
yeah, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we did that, and it was some sort of like Doctor Strangelove, you know, scene that I had made.
Right. And you don't do the bathroom selfies there. I guess maybe that disappeared, or is that
Oh no,
coming
that's
back?
the thing. It was like I don't know how we managed to have a Wonderland night without a Wonderland bathroom selfie, but there's a big bathroom mirror, and if you go to Wonderland in Richmond, you got to pile like 20 people in the bathroom and take like a hashtag Wonderland bathroom selfie. You know, especially anyone who plays the Canal Club in Richmond. Um,
Yeah, Jack played there. I went and hung out with them. It was awesome.
I
I'm
think I
glad
was
they're
in
still getting stuff.
Sweden for your gig. I wanted to come out, but I was
Ah,
not there.
next time.
Hopefully,
There
we're in
will
the
be a
same
next time.
century the next
Yeah,
time.
in like 7 years when we have the next gig in Richmond.
Not really like a popular tour destination.
No. Hey, I'll have another guitar for you in 7 years, Jack. So that's perfect.
Woohoo.
Hey, 7 is the theme. It's 7 deadly episodes, 7
That's right.
Spartans, 7 years till the next game.
So to close it out, because it's almost 10:07.
Yeah.
Who would be the ultimate band to dress, and why is it Iron Maiden?
Yeah, clearly Iron Maiden is my favorite band. Someone asked me that question about like who would you invite to the dinner party, and there's 8 people, and I was trying to get ideas from my assistant, and she was like, just invite Iron Maiden, and then you only need a few people.
Yeah, and then
I was like, well, we
Eddie.
have Anthony Bourdain to cook for us because he was like fucking awesome, and then you know Iron Maiden, and then he just needed one more person.
Yeah. Well, Ron Smallwood would be there because he's always
Yeah,
with the band. Or Ross
exactly.
Altman taking pictures.
But no, like I guess I'll like have achieved my career goal when I dress Iron Maiden if I could ever get that gig, because I think like I would even Bruce Dickinson is an amazing polymath, but I don't understand what he wears or has ever worn. And I really would like to help that for metal, not insulting what he wears, but I don't understand it at all. And you know, Adrian Smith, I've seen him like and Dave Murray like wear some cool pants. Nico just wears like pajama pants or whatever, so he doesn't need any clothes. And I've
Yeah.
met him and done a cool interview with him for 70K, but I would love to have a go at Bruce Dickinson's wardrobe someday. I'm sure he has someone who's been making him those things for years, but
Yeah,
I would.
it's Idaho potatoes, because literally looks like he's wearing a potato sack with like string sometimes wrapped around it.
Yeah, the dragon
Very
scale
sweet.
like baggy pants with the camo vest, or like you know even back in the day like the striped leggings, and then like the last tour he had like a stuffed monkey like head piece thing or something, and I don't understand, but I would like to
Take
contribute
take the
my
ultimate
thing.
take the ultimate costume that like Rob Halford wears, sorry, and do the opposite, and that's what Bruce Dickinson wears.
Right. Yeah, I got to work with Judas Priest for a little bit,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
Andy Sneap like joined, and he was just wearing some off the shelf clothes, and I was sort of like hanging out with them anyway because my friend was their guitar tech, and I was like, you know, it was sort of like we were both doing the festival circuits, and we ended up being on the same festivals all the time, and we'd always end up like in the pub, and then they played Virginia Beach, had a day off, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna make you something. Same thing like artist. I had an artistic idea, but that was fun. And they ended up in my van, which was decorated up like all Iron Maiden. And when I when I decorated
Whoops.
the van, which the license plate says Halen, Van
Yeah, it's
Halen,
Van Halen, right? Anyone knows
but
that.
I did up the back because when we kind of stopped touring over COVID, I was like, oh, I want to turn it in one of those like van life camper vans, which is in Virginia useful for like 2 weeks in the fall and 2 weeks in the spring when it's not like swelteringly hot. But I was like, oh, I want to make it either Maiden or Priest themed. So I went with Maiden. And then like they were in the hotel lobby, and they're just like, you know how we get to like the post office of the mall? And I'm like, I'll take you there in the van. So I've
There's this
gotten
van that I borrowed from a friend of mine.
yeah, so now I've got like the entire band of Judas Priest in my fucking van, which is luckily not decorated up like Judas Priest, or they would have been like, we won't get raped, you know, like but
Yeah, that
but
would have been worse.
yeah, it would have been bad. but I have a tape deck in there, and I think I had like diamond heads behold the beginning on tape in the tape deck. And they're like, this is awesome. And then they're like, can we just like keep driving around in your van, listen to tapes? And then like I drove them to the fucking gig that night. And with like in my van, it was crazy. But you know, that's like Judas Priest, I feel like is on kind of the same level as Iron Maiden. So
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like I've worked my way up to like one step away from, you know, maybe getting, and definitely like I've given my business card to some people. It just needs to get in the right hands. But
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, you've done a lot with Nico. I know you've interviewed him. I mean, you take pictures wearing our gear with him, and I'm like, this is like awesome. Look, there's my shirt. But like, you may have to pull a Rex with him and just start with him and be like, just give him something. Say, I thought this would be kind of cool for you to check out. You know, I mean,
yeah, I
Go
gotta
with
kind
your
of
foot.
size him up first. But yeah, like I'd have to come up with some, you know, like they had the Senjutsu album, and they've done that. That tour is over now, so you know, like they come up with a new album, it would just be a new theme. But I could even make him something that even just makes sense generally to wear for Iron Maiden. But I think his style is such he doesn't really put a lot of effort into what he wears on a
yeah,
daily basis, and that's part of the thing is like taking into consideration what someone feels comfortable wearing. So what he puts on is very much a costume rather than like a stage persona.
right, right,
You know, anyway, it's
cool.
part of my job.
You wouldn't do it if you didn't love it.
Right? It's not for the money, that's for sure.
Very cool. Well, Kim, it has been absolute blast chatting with you and everything. You're so busy. Thank you for taking the time to participate with us and do this. It's really cool. You know, I'm very blessed, to say the least, to have such amazing people that I consider friends, just doing all these awesome things and are willing to talk about it, you know, for a couple hours. So again,
Thanks for having me on. I'm
appreciate it.
blessed to have you as a friend and great to finally meet you, Jack. And it's been really fun hanging virtually. Feels like the days of like COVID virtual pubs or whatever, but
Right. Yeah. And we definitely got to
podcast
get
listeners
another.
enjoy our drivel here.
Yeah. I saw in my memories, it's been like 3 or 4 years since we did the axe throwing. We need to try to plan that in the next 3 years to do
Oh
again.
yeah,
Get a whole
definitely.
huge thing happening. It would be awesome.
Johan was really good at that too. So, but
Surprisingly,
yeah.
I told the place at the axe throwing company, I was like, you realize you have the modern Viking guy of the planet here right now throwing axes, and it was like, oh, okay. Like I was
Okay.
like,
I don't think that's their target audience. They like military people or something.
yeah, but I mean, you know, their music is definitely. All of my military guys are all huge metalheads. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I think people knew who he was that were there and were just like, that can't be that dude. But you know, their staff are like, you know, Gen Zs or whatever is after that. They're not even there
Oh, no,
because they
yeah.
would like axes and Viking culture. They just have a after school job or something. But it was awesome. I really had a lot of fun, you know, doing that.
Cool. Well, it was a
So,
blast. We need to do that again or like that you know, karaoke room or something.
oh
But
yeah, I mean, you know, now that you can actually go out and do these things, um, hopefully we'll relive some of the fun stuff here real soon. But you know, you're always everywhere on the planet, so I don't ever really get to schedule things so much. But we're always thinking about hanging out with you and Johan. It was a lot of fun, and we appreciate again, you know, uh, being a part of your experience in a little tiny way.
well, thanks for being awesome friends and always super supportive. Everything from the Vulvatron triangle to coffee. So
Yeah, oh, we didn't even thought of that. Oh, we'll bring that up next time.
yeah, coffee. It's like coffee. It's like we didn't talk about it like slightly in
Oh
something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, the triangle. I honestly forgot a little bit about the death
Oh, the
metal
triangle.
triangle we had made
Oh
for
yeah, one of
Voltron.
one signature series.
Yeah, I still have the. I was looking at the other day. I have the stencil where we had stenciled your name, like on the
It's
road.
on the case. Yeah, I still have it. It's in my practice space.
I know
And
occasionally you'll either share a memory or you'll use it. I think you used it a couple years ago on like a recording. I was like, that's awesome.
maybe I can paint it like neon and use it for ectoplasm. We'll have a triangle sign. But I kind of want to. I don't want to modify it at all. It's good.
Yeah, we can always make another one. So I'll give you a form. You go on the website, fill it out. It's real easy.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get, a sponsorship so I can get free triangles.
Right.
Perhaps you've heard of me.
Yeah. There'll be Doritos chips. Those are the free triangles we're gonna send you. But only the spicy chili ones because they're vegan.
That's cool. Those are the ones I like.
Very cool. All right. Hey,
right.
hey. Thanks again. This has been Sound the Grounds, and we're getting loopy towards the end, but that's just how we rock and roll. So much thanks on this side of the table for Kim, Dylla for being with us and partying virtually. Thanks, Jack, for being here and kicking it old school, like an old cool fool. It's just been fun. I'm out of things to say. This has been Sounds and Grounds. Thank you so much. Everyone have a good night. Stay metal. We'll see you next time.
Stay metal.